This information you are about to hear and perhaps view, these are not necessarily the thoughts or the ideas of Gary C.Clement or the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast. We are in no way, shape, or form affiliated with the parties this story is about or was interviewed for. Parts of this content may not be owned by or the property of the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast, G2 Network Media, or any other company we are affiliated with, and this information is strictly the opinion of those being interviewed. This content is for information purposes only, and although we may make reference to various news stories, we share our own independent beliefs about the content and provide our own opinions. Please enjoy the information. Haard News, hosted by Gary C.Clement. Today's news is made up of so many different issues, and it's hard to keep up. But we all know it's important to keep law enforcement in the community and society, as many in America have a problem doing the right thing. Growing up, my mother always said it's easy to do right, but so many people choose wrong, and once you get in trouble, it's very hard to get out of it. Haard News will tackle all issues that break the barriers of justice for all, freedom for all, and simply a good and strong meaning of democracy for all. The show covers politics, crime, gun violence in our communities, and will introduce guests who have a personal stake in these issues. So without further ado, please enjoy this week of Haard News, hosted by Gary C. Clement. Hello, my name is Gary C. Clement, and welcome to Haard News. In this episode, the topics of discussion are: Number 1, the importance of affordable housing in America. Number 2, home ownership versus renting. And number 3, gentrification and how it's affecting American urban communities. Our guest today is Miss Eugenia Foxworth. She's the New York City-based president of Foxworth Realty and past president of the International Real Estate Federation of the United States of America. Today, she's here to have a discussion with us about the importance of Afro-Americans owning real estate and how the housing and high rent crisis is affecting urban America. Also with us is my co-host, Mr. Ron Dove. First of all, Ms. Foxworth, please tell us about your life, what it took to get to where you are in the company that you own.
Well, I'll be as quick as I possibly can. I started out by graduating Drexel. I studied engineering, and I got a job working at the Philadelphia Naval Base as a receptionist for the Commandant of the 4th Naval District, of which my friends and I, who were Lieutenant JGs, had to buy drinks for people. And then we decided to let me get a job working for the airline to see if I would be accepted. And that was it. It was a bet, so we wouldn't have to pay. While working as when I became a flight attendant, I was like, there were others that were brown and black, but they weren't identifiable. I was identifiable. And at which time, I was written up in the Philadelphia Bulletin and the Philadelphia Inquirer, and Barrett Rustin came into my life, wondering where I came from, not knowing that it was just on a dare. Following that, I opened up a boutique in New York City, where I was based, a Mexican boutique, because I was tired of bringing tchotchkes back to friends. And then I opened Foxworth Gallery, which I did fine art. And in the process of looking for a new space, having had 2 floods at that time, the real estate people were taking me every place but where I wanted to be. I was located on 65th Street in New York, on the east side between Madison and Park. And that was the beginning of my opening up my real estate company, because I had no idea that one had to have a license to do so. So I got my license, and I had to work with someone, because you cannot begin working unless you've been there 2 years, or you're an attorney, or you to get a broker's license. I got my agent's license, but I had to work as an agent. And that was the beginning. And in 2008, I opened up Foxworth Realty. that's how it all began.
Okay, great. Okay, so I guess now you've been in business, 12, 13 years maybe?
Um, owning my business has been 13. No, owning my business has been 13 years.
Right.
Since 2008, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, great, great. So your first property, tell us a little bit about that. What was how was it difficult, or, was it challenging to purchase your first property? Talk a little bit about that for us, please.
For me to purchase or for my client to purchase?
For your client to purchase, yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, I never really, when I began, had that problem because during that period, there weren't, I was not when I opened in Harlem in 2008, I had already been selling all over because I'm local, national, and global. So when I went to Harlem, I did not have a problem. I knew, I knew where to go. I knew what to do. And so for me, I skipped that. The problem I had was with the real estate agents, which, thought like, well, who are you? And I had said my name and my company. And getting into certain properties, that's the problem I had. And as I said, there are certain buildings that they did not, there's nothing that said you could not go into, but there were certain areas that I realized they did not let you in. But those were real estate agents. I'm a realtor. Now, everybody calls anyone who sells real estate realtors, but we've had a code of ethics since the 1800s, and we had to follow those codes. It's now, in the past few years, every real estate sales associate has to take an ethics course every 2 years. We have to do that when we do our continuing ed, which is every 2 years. So that's where the problem has come in. But yeah, that was the serious part of my selling.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. New York is a big market and a challenging market. Was it difficult to break into selling there?
New York is an interesting way of selling. My first company that I went to work for was Coldwell Banker Hunt Kennedy, who is no longer in New York. Mm-hmm. And it was like one of the most civilized real estate. Even the agents were civilized. We were like family. And I went to, I was in their Lexington Avenue between 80th and 81st Street office. So it was like family. Will Hunt was from the Hunts of Texas. Joanne Kennedy was from Westchester. And it was easy. The only thing is I had to get my own clients. See, that's a part of real estate that you have to do. I do it different, unfortunately. My agents are used to me giving them clients. Some companies you could sit, and when people came in once a week, you get a time to sit. And if you became a high-end client, then that's when a high-end broker, that's when they pass clients to you. In my case, I left my company and went, that I was with, Coldwell Banker Hunt Kennedy, and I went to another company who I won't mention, and that company was actually not giving me my clients. No one was selling in the Riverdale, Upper West Side or Riverdale as I was doing. I mean, I'm further north. And at that time, no one really was selling. They had just started selling above 96th Street. I realized, hey, I'm not getting any clients. And then all of a sudden, this company's high-end people were there because the receptionist took calls. That's when I decided, when you want to ask things, this is the question I can answer. That's when I decided to open my own company.
I see.
Because, yes, so that was it. One of my interns said they were coming in asking, what am I doing? What is she doing with social media and things like that? And so that's why I began, I did what I did. I got my own license, a broker's license. I got the company, the reason I opened in 2008 in Harlem, because the bottom fell out of real estate and the economy. And someone said, I have a great place for you to go to, since you lost your space.
I see. Okay. Now, you are also involved with the International Real Estate Federation. Talk a little bit about that, please, and what work they do.
Okay. The International Real Estate Federation started in 1952. And in 1952, they were, they started a little before World War II. What they were doing is affordable housing and building cities that, during the bombing, etc. So we are now located in 70 countries. I was the president of the United States, the FIAPSI United States. And I was the first Black and or brown person in 72 years to be elected by my colleagues. No one else was there. You have to be elected. And the organization has been affiliated with the UN together, for affordable housing. We've been doing this before the buzzword affordable. So we have been doing that. And that enabled me to do the things that would benefit most people, but specific inner city communities.
Okay, very good. Okay, so can you talk a little bit about some of the work that you've been able to do with that organization?
I was actually given the position to be on the Scholarship Foundation. And being on the Scholarship Foundation, I'm a trustee. That enabled me to try to get professors in the various colleges, that we would give them a honorary academic membership free. In order to we needed one professor in every college, because there are 40 different professions under the umbrella of real estate. And therefore, the students could submit their applications and get scholarships. Therefore, I felt I could take the students when they graduated had two opportunities to work if they wanted to do development, since we have developers. If they wanted to do international finance, they would have that exposure. They could also go into their neighborhoods and inform people about real estate. Everybody's friend can tell you, but in the end, that's why we lose our properties. That's why things happen. So that enabled me to do that. There were people that were losing their brownstones because they would put a renter in, not knowing that if the check the renter had was signed over to the mortgage company, basically that renter could take your property if you were slow in your payments or if you were going into foreclosure. So I put people, rentals, through my organization, because a lot of referrals came to me for New York. People, their friends or relatives were going to college in New York, and because we're a hot market for students. And I would put the students into the brownstones so that I could show the courts, not me going in, but putting it up on my website, as an owner of a property. I could not do it as a, as an agent, but as a broker, I could. I could put their properties up on the website, showing that it's being, we're trying to rent. They could go to court and say, here, this is what I am doing. And that saved several people from foreclosure. Also, the different organizations I got involved with, business organizations, I spoke. And I realized that even commercial people do not know there are 5 different commercial leases. Some didn't even have a lease. Some people lost their place because they've been there, I've been here 20 or 30 years. All of a sudden, when the market got greedy, people were selling. They didn't care that you were there that long. So it's a lot of different things that I do to help the community that I would not have been able to do had I not become a member of the International Federation of Real Estate. And guess what? I did not know who they were when I got into the business. Keeping in mind, I got into the business because I hated real estate agents. And they were taking me to all the wrong places. Little did I know I'd have to work for a broker before or sell over $2 million in properties, get commission, not over $2 million, for $2 or $3 million. Mm-hmm. So I could apply to work to do that. So, I put a lot of work in, but I've enjoyed it. And I know that I've been helpful because people will tell me, right. I did this.
I see. Okay. So when it comes to the importance of affordable housing here in America, how many of these properties that you actually were in charge of, where you actually had a lot of Afro-Americans, purchasing, or were we purchasing at all?
That's an interesting thing. I found out when I went to Harlem, a lot of people there did not own their brownstones. Mm-hmm. And you have 2 and 3 generations. Mm-hmm. And that was really bad. There was a young lady that was selling brownstones, and she wanted particular people to do it. She's a woman of color. And the New York Times and everyone came down on them. What I find personally, most of my clients, even if they're buying in Harlem or the Upper West Side, I would say the percentage of Black are, I would say, less than 10% of my clients. But once I get them, they refer me to other people. You want to ask me the question why? Because I would say, someone would come to me and say, I just bought an apartment. And, I learned to not lose all the porcelain off of my teeth. Mm-hmm. And I'd have to hold back. So I don't curse, but what I say is worse than cursing, as some people have told me. So what happened, I got tired of it, and I finally said, excuse me, I said, did you use a Black broker? Oh, yeah, I used a Black broker or a Black realtor. And I said, which company? And then I would say, no, you used a real estate salesperson working for a white company. Mm-hmm. Or you use an associate broker, which means an associate broker is someone who has their broker's license, but they're working under the umbrella of another company. So I said, so you basically were working with a white company. Mm-hmm. And I had to explain that to people. And so, no, my percentage is, I have, believe it or not, a lot of Asians. The Koreans always come to me in Riverdale. I have a whole group there. And it's interesting because I feel that we should be supportive of each other. Everyone knows who I am. I do a lot of philanthropic things in Harlem. Mm-hmm. I had my kiosk in CVS in Harlem throughout the pandemic. I only recently, last year, removed it. You know, I have it in Riverdale because that's a community that's like marble, I say, or a rainbow. And, you know, the kiosk was the sanitizer and had my name, etc. on it. I'm in one of the publications, the Harlem News, every week since 2008. So there's no excuse not to know who I am. You know, it's a lot of volunteer work that I'm visible.
Right.
But I can't, but no, I was going to say, but the question, how many? Not many. Not many.
I see. Okay. Ron, do you have any questions for Ms. Foxworth?
Yeah, I would like to kind of intercede a little bit. I remember when Bill Clinton put his office in Harlem. I think it was 125th Street during the time when his presidency, and that seemed to be a turning point for a lot of residents coming to Harlem. I don't know if he ushered in a lot of that. I mean, a lot of the white residents coming into Harlem, and it seems today now that Harlem is not the same Harlem it was back in the day when you had the Renaissance period and so many of the great poets and musicians, but it's turned to something different. I haven't been there in a while, but it's just an interesting story. Harlem has so much history, and it's interesting that you are part of that that landscape. But I used to live in San Francisco, and I came out the military, and I was able to find a room to live in with some of my other military guys, Navy guys, and so forth. And it was San Francisco at that time was usable, friendly, for people. A lot of people with transits, and they were coming through, and they could find a place to stay relatively cheap. Well, fast forward today, the same house that I was rooming in, 2381 Bush Street between Fillmore and Sutter, was going for over $2 million. And that just blew my mind. It was showing me how the real estate situation has changed over the years. And I know Governor Newsom in California has come up with this. It was SB6. I don't know if you heard this SB6 plan for middle class housing, and it helps to give local the government's option for developing affordable properties. But the thing that I'm looking at, and maybe you can address it, is the housing today has gone sky high, and people have two options as far as a place to live, whether it will be an apartment building or whether it will be a house. And if you have to choose from these two options, I mean, everything depends, is relevant to the person. But the house, the median rent now in the United States, I think they say, is over $2,000 to rent. And a house, you have expenses, and you have taxes, and you have utility upkeep and so forth. So people are falling through the cracks, and when you can't meet your obligations, these people who are you're renting from, they want to get paid, or you just have to go. So now some people are falling into a situation where they're homeless, and I'm understanding, I've learned that they have tent cities. I've heard they have 10 cities in San Francisco and some parts of California. I know they've had some here in Philadelphia. So it seems to be like a housing crisis now, where some people are falling through the cracks because now they're not able to afford the housing, and the ones who do have it and are not able to maintain it, they're going into homelessness. And the homeless situation is increasing, and nobody is even speaking about it, right? So, I find it interesting, and a lot of people, middle class or lower, if they lose the income or something drastic happens, what happens? They could be homeless. So maybe that was some of my observations from what I'm seeing with the housing industry, and the sad fact of the affordability right now of housing and renting or buying. I don't know how high they're going to go, but as soon as it's going to be to the breaking point where who's going to be able to afford it as far as in the lower income status.
Right. Okay.
So,
Ms. Foxworth, how do you feel about that?
Oh, right. That's my Achilles heel. First of all, Airbnb came into New York and New Jersey. Mm-hmm. It's illegal here, okay? Mm-hmm. That's why they now say a host. When properties burned, insurance companies used to call me. Mm-hmm. The people didn't pay me any money. The insurance companies paid me. Mm-hmm. At that time, 1 or 2 months rent. Now they're offering me 4 months rent. Wow. Don't you think I would be doing that if I could find housing? No. What has happened, and I don't blame the people, if you were going to get, $1,500 to $2,500 a month mm-hmm. for an apartment, mm-hmm. and all of a sudden you're getting $150, $250. Some now I know are even getting $350 mm-hmm. for a day. During the pandemic, I was getting calls because I'm involved with New York City. I'm an MWBE, minority woman business owner, and they do know me. I got calls for nurses. We couldn't find places, and Airbnb for a nurse is ridiculous. They can't afford it. Mm-hmm. Then I found, so you've lost that. In the inner city communities, it's always been, I know when I came to the States in Philadelphia with my mom, there were always people that lived in somebody's home. In the Bronx, some of the basements people lived in. And we have mm-hmm. have sold our people out in certain areas mm-hmm. because you have to go to someone in order to do it. I've seen sponsors from, Airbnbs. So this is hard. I have people in shelters because, and these are working class people. I spoke to someone about it publicly, a nurse whose parents died, and she had 2 siblings, and 3 siblings, and she did not want them to go into foster care. Do you know that we couldn't find a place for her, and she had to go to a shelter? Those who go to homes are burned, and our people are more affected than anybody else because we're the ones in the homes, or we've been in apartments forever, because you're not going to move if the median income is in this country is $45,000 or $50,000, and it's right now it's not fair. Yes, what I saw when I was in San Francisco attending a conference, they had given them little pup tents to people, and they were outside. I don't want to laugh, but when you're at an event and they're showing you their multi-million-dollar home, and what they were doing in this particular house, a Maserati or Alfa Romeo, I get the 2 mixed up, was being sold with the house. In other words, you buy the house, you get the Alfa or the Maserati. Then they had to clear the street when we came in for this event because, connections to get the homeless away. Yes, people are homeless. I have a family now that's a family of 4, 9-year-old son, 17-year-old son of color, and I have an inexpensive apartment, a 1-bedroom, and they want to move in there. You can't move in. You cannot have 4 people living in a 1-bedroom apartment. So, right now, it's like a catch-22. You do it or you don't. And, I agree with you, Mr. Dove, 100%. Right now, we have to stick together, which we don't. In this field. It's just like I'm always the first. Why? Because as I said to you prior to the call, I have I'm petite, but I have a tall attitude. And that's what we need to do, and use our tall attitudes and don't let other people come around and take things away from us. If I can do it, and I'm not even a grain of sand on the beach, and I save people's properties, why can't others save? And I save in Harlem. I very seldom sell. I only sell if it's a friend that wants me to sell.
I see.
But I save.
Right, I see. Interesting. So now, how does our federal government get involved in this and provide a solution that's, like you said, workable for everybody? What do they need to do?
Well, first of all, people lose their homes because they haven't paid their taxes.
True.
So 40% of the homes that have been lost is due to people not paying taxes. I think that the government should have some way of saying, at closings, they say, well, if you don't pay your tax, this is going to happen. But then I think the government should step in and say something. There are a lot of empty buildings right now, commercial buildings. I'm sure that these buildings, I know for a fact, they've gotten stipends for the buildings and they're empty. Yes, landlords need to live too, 100%. But why can't the government work together with the landlords to help turn some of the commercial buildings into affordable housing? I passed a building for the past 3 years, and I'm like, why? And they're in Harlem. They're in Midtown Manhattan, and I know that, Detroit, when I was in Detroit, they were buying. This one gentleman had bought all those commercial buildings, I think one for $3 million, and he brought in 17,000 workers. This is before the pandemic. But he's giving back to the city. He's employing the people in the city. So I think the government should partner in a manner. Yeah.
Well, can I interject something too?
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been noticing, and in my travels, my limited travels, I've noticed with I guess you can call it gentrification, where you have these investors that are coming into cities and building on every plot of land they can find. Right here in Philadelphia, it's a massive building going on. Although they have a tax situation where for 10 years, people are free from the taxes. So in Philadelphia, it opens up the door. But then I noticed from what I'm hearing and seeing all out the country, these developers are all over the country building and once they build these cookie cutter apartment buildings or whatever you want to call them, the rent is going to be astronomical, and it's not going to be for low income. So then what happens to the people who can't afford these apartments? You know what I'm saying? And then in the communities, if the taxes go up, then that's another problem. And then on the political side, what I see too is like I think when the new people come in, then you have a group of voters, depending on who these people are, who can actually kind of redistrict the voting. But that's a whole nother ball game. So I'm saying, when like all these other countries have had some major downfalls, and in America we've been blessed for so many years, but are we about to run out of our good prosperity with the prices continually going up? There's going to be a certain point where people are just, it's not going to be sustainable. I mean, so many people not able to pay the rents. So many people can't maintain on, like you say, for $40,000 or $50,000 a medium income. So are we headed for a real breakdown in this country because of housing and employment and all that? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, what I'm noticing now is this. Prices are going down in New York, all over New York. However, the taxes and the interest rates have gone up. Mm-hmm. And that's right. I remember when I mentioned earlier in our conversation that Joanne Kennedy said, and I'll never forget what she said. She said, New York is going to be for the poor and for the wealthy. And I'm seeing it now. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing it now. And you are too, no matter where, if you're in one of the states that people are being bussed into, they're getting all the things that the people that have been paying their taxes can't get. And that's the couple that I was telling you about that's trying to move 4 in to a 1-bedroom apartment. Wow. So, yes, I see if a change doesn't happen, I think what the wealthy and the poor are going to be affected. And the reason I say that, look at India. Mm-hmm. You've got the wealthy, and you go around the corner, there's the poor. Right. The system has got to change. Right. It's got to change, because if you pay, there are people that are having trouble paying their insurance. I know I have a customer. It's like I don't charge certain people when they're renting. I don't charge them a commission. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because, or I reduce it so low if it's my properties, or if it's a developer that will pay me. Mm-hmm. That's different. But the bottom line is, people don't have the money. And right. I think the pandemic affected so many people, and their buildings with people, they think on Section 8 and that other FLIPS. FLIPS is what the city does in New York. Mm-hmm. They give, they're giving up to $2,500 or $3,000 to pay the rent mm-hmm. for people who are actually working. Mm. But they don't have the income. They don't have the income to get into the buildings. Mm. Yeah.
Something. I live next door to Jersey, in Pennsylvania, right? Mm-hmm. New Jersey, you probably realize this too, has some of the highest taxes in the nation. And I've talked to some people that I know that live over there. And one friend of mine, he lives in a humble neighborhood, small area. And he was telling me his taxes, he had to pay, I think, about $600 a month. Okay. Mm-hmm. But that was on the low end. And they have some people, spending maybe $1,000 and even more a month, maybe almost $2,000 or whatever, depending on the size of the house that they have. But what has happened is gotten so bad that even the governor over there have decided that someone came up with a proposal to cut the taxes for the senior citizens in half. Now, It hasn't happened yet, but I think they're proposing this because they even recognize that it's so ridiculous. You can buy a beautiful house over there and be in Jersey, but yet you're going to pay humongous amount of money for taxes every month. And I think gotten to the point where it's at the breaking point. And so maybe just like in New York, where they're giving them a little stipend, I guess people around the country are going to have to recognize, listen, you can't go much farther with this situation. You can't just keep raising the ceiling and nobody can reach it, So I think hopefully governments, some of the wiser people are going to take notice and take some steps to come up with some measures, like maybe in New York or what they're trying to do in Jersey.
Okay, so should there be a cap in regards to like how high the rent can get, or how high like you say, a mortgage can go as far as like a condominium or a townhouse? What are your thoughts there?
I think well, I'll let her speak, but I think somehow they're going to have to cut it back, because you can't keep going up, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, $2,500, and every year they say, okay, well, we got expenses and taxes and stuff. So where is the ceiling? I mean, after a while, you get to a point where it's just not going to work. But I'll listen to what
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, New York, because I'm here, the taxes have gone up. The mortgage rate has gone up. And I tell people, remember, if you're buying something and they're telling you 5% down, for every $100,000 that you borrow, that's $600 that you have to pay the mortgage company. And you're thinking about it. So if you look at it in that sense, then you've got, co-ops in New York, we have co-ops and condos. The taxes are included in the co-op maintenance. And I think that's what saved us in 1989 or 90, when things went bottomed up because of that. The condos, you pay your taxes separately, and that's what's happening across the country. Now, you have no control over houses, because the government sends out the thing as to what your taxes are going to be.
Right.
But I always wondered, where is that money going?
Right. That's a good question.
Right.
No, I'm very serious. Where is it going? If you don't have a good school district, your taxes are lower, so you figure out where those school districts are. And if you have a good school district, the taxes are high, but then you don't have to send your kids to private school because it's a good school district. I have a property that I was selling in Elmsford, and it's right on the golf course. It's in a cul-de-sac. Loved it myself, but I'm a city person. I mean, it's a city, but I like to be able to walk out and go across the street and buy coffee or whatever. But the people were coming to see it, air conditioned, beautiful. It was a ranch house, beautiful. It was on 0.63 acres. The generator, when Hurricane Stanley came along, they were fine. They had their own generator. The basement's marble. Fireplace in the living room. I was selling it for $850,000.
Wow.
$850,000. We started off at $950, and people say, "Oh, that's too high." So my client said, "Well, let's reduce it to $850." Do you know why people didn't buy?
Why?
Because the school district and the owner said to me, there are too many, and she was Ghanaian, there are too many brown and black people in the school district.
Interesting.
And it was on the borderline of, what do you call the place? they were Elmsford, but the other town is, Green. I can't even, and
I see.
anyway, Green is, it's the innate racism that we all feel. Sometimes you don't realize it.
Right.
I get it because people are comfortable with me.
Right, I understand.
Okay?
You know something that's amazing? I just want to throw this in. When we go a little bit Afrocentric, I was just listening to, there's a lot of African Americans now that have a dual citizenship, and they're going to, and I'm getting out the country, I know, going to Africa and living, like a dual citizen thing, and developing situations and societies over there in Africa, So, I mean, we're speaking about the United States, but there's some folks that are seeking to leave to find a better, way of life, but yet still maintain their citizenship, and and their well-being as far as what their profession is and so forth. But that's another interesting thing, and it's not spoken of widely. But when you listen to certain folks, you're finding out that a lot of this is happening. Talking about in the United States, but I've had some foreigners tell me, say, why don't you come to something like in the islands, and you could go there and you could live so inexpensively, and you could have all kind of services and so forth, and some people are actually looking toward doing stuff like that. I know I'm getting away from the homeland here, but we've become international people right now. We don't always get a chance to talk to a lot of folks like that, but I'm hearing so much about different people. I mean, people going to different countries, but yet maintain their dual citizenship. But I didn't mean to take you off course, but that hit me.
Okay. So
No.
Okay, go ahead, Miss Foxworth. You can say something if you need
I
to.
was just saying that a lot of people are going to the South now. Since before the pandemic, to South Carolina and North Carolina, because they could live much better. But now the prices are going up.
Yes, they are.
When you have that wave, the prices are going. And I can say one thing. People of color are still coming to the U.S. So there's a trade-off wherever you live.
Right. Absolutely. Right. Okay. So you also have a podcast, Miss Foxworth. Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Oh, yes. That's my heart. The Foxworth Theory. I started doing the Foxworth Theory, and we allowed people to talk about themselves. And it is art, fashion, business, and entertainment. I learn more from the people who come on than I do. And it's very informative. I've had doctors, designers, developers, just everyone. We even had Antonio Farkas that was on. Melba Moore was on. The chef that cooked for President Obama and Oprah Winfrey were on. And they're relaxed. It's informative. They talk about health. Like one of the top people that you don't know, a man of color who is the head of the medical division, and I can't think of the name of it, in Washington, D.C. Very, very prominent. I didn't know that he was there. It was like, oh my God. And listening to him. And he, working at the medical naval facility and all of that. Just what people have done. They're all nationalities, But a lot of the people that come on are people whose names you would know, and there are those whose names you don't know, and then all of a sudden you see them and you go, oh my goodness. But the show for me is an education to our people. Our history is gone. You don't know how people got there. Like now with the internet and the young people thinking, oh, this is that. No, they're remaking the wheel. But the people that have come on are amazing. They had Laverna Franklin. And Laverna Franklin had been a military woman. She's a mother, a grandmother. And she was always working to preserve the housing. She was called, she's from Pennsylvania, Harrisburg. She came from Harrisburg to work with Columbia University when as the vice president of strategic planning and construction. Columbia is the largest real estate landowner in New York. Wow. She is a woman of color. She's black. Let's just put it out there. She's black. Cool. And she was the one when they were relocating people. She did it in such a manner that if you were losing a building that you were living in, you were losing your space. The buildings that Columbia built, there was room for you there. If you had a river view, the Hudson River, if you had the river view, they did that. You went in. It's not like a developer is building a building and they're getting money from the government or tax cuts and for those rebates for 10, 15 years. And you have to put in 20% of the people. No, they did that. If it was in, and they wanted to keep it comfortable, they brought her in to calm the community. And that's what she did. She did it for 11 years. Wow. And she was the first. And she told me, but Eugenia, I know there were others. I said, yeah, just like Misty Copeland is not the first black ballerina for, ABT. But she is one that's recognizable. Right. Just like me with the airlines. You knew what I was when I walked in. Right. It wasn't getting around it. So, yeah. And then her son did a film. Mm-hmm. And we interviewed him. Mm-hmm. So Laverna retired for medical reasons. But these are the people, like they say, the hidden people. Mm-hmm. They're hidden and they're powerful. And they've worked within the communities. Mm-hmm. And those are the people that are important to me, and they should be important to the kids, because these people started out no cell phones. You didn't have the media coverage that you have now. Mm-hmm. And they did it. And this is something that I listen to, and when even my mouth is like, oh my God, you did that. Or the women that are attorneys that had made a difference, the women they called the purple godmother, who, because her son was autistic, mm-hmm. and there was no place for him to go, and she started something herself, and now she's all over for these kids. I mean, she was on one of the prime TV shows. And this is what I'm talking about. I love my show. And I also love when there's fashion. But I also, to me, it's my encyclopedia.
I see. Okay. So in closing, give us the information for social media where people can reach you, please.
Well, you can see the Foxworth Theory on the Foxworth Theory YouTube. Okay. My business is FoxworthRealtyOnline.com, and you can call my office at 212-368-4686. 4902. But I'm all over the web. The Foxworth Theory, it's there. You can go onto our site, go onto YouTube, and Foxworth Realty is there as well. Or put my name in if you forget all the other things, Eugenia Foxworth. Google me and I'll pop up.
We really do appreciate our guests who participated in this episode, and we hope you learned something that will bless your day and your life. For all who are interested in learning more about the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast, please visit www.amazon.com and order my book, The Gary Clement Radio Show, When Strong Afro-American Men and Women Stand Up. It covers everything about us and features a variety of Afro-American personalities who speak out about the importance of education and literacy in the Black community. Well, we thank you for tuning into our podcast. Please send us your email address so we can contact you when we have new releases and new episodes and new projects as well. You can reach us at gccpresents@yahoo.com. And also, if you're interested in submitting any materials or want to get in touch with us, please do so by simply sending an email to gccpresents@yahoo.com. That's G as in Gary, C as in Charlie, C as in Charlie, presents@yahoo.com. So until next time, do take care. And this is a G-Tube Network Media production.